Okay, let's go. Oops. Let's go live. Okay, we are live on Facebook. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to episode number 23 of the Blossoming Into You show. My name is Miko Lau, and I'm your host. Just a little bit about me in case you are new to this show. I am a pleasure transformational coach dedicated to supporting women on how to reclaim their magnetism, their radiance, and their aliveness through their sexual powers and pleasure. And today on here with this episode, we have with us Wendy from Bay Area, California, and we're going to be diving deep into talking about how to love our fears so that we can really show up in a position that is powerful, confident, and just unstoppable. So, with that being said, Wendy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Miko. Thank you so much for inviting me, having me over on this beautiful Friday. Well, whatever day it is. Thank you so much.
It's a beautiful day. Whenever you tune in, if you're watching live,
It is.
just so happy to have all of you joining us today. So Wendy, me and you, we know each other for like a while now, and just like I know, just like me, you have a vision, you have the passion to making such a powerful difference, using your gifts, being exactly who you are, and I know what that journey is like. Obviously, it's not always rainbows and sunshines and all amazing. It comes with us really allowing a lot of the fear surfacing in
Mhm.
more, almost like a regular daily basis. So do you want to share with us a little bit about like what your journey has been like? What do you do? And really just share what you feel like share with the audience.
Yes. Thank you so much for allowing me to have this space of for a lot of people to get to know each other, and then for me also to share my experience and what it's been like. So when it comes to fear, it's the thing that as soon as people listen or hear that word or listen to something that has to do with like being uncomfortable, not knowing what to do, there's a little bit of resistance, right? And one of the things that, and for me, I mean, it was always like that as well. Like from what I recall, growing up, I was a very quiet, shy person, but I also feel like I was very fearful of anything. Maybe it has to do because I was the only child. Maybe it had to do with a lot of experiences that I went through as a child that I probably wasn't given the reinforcement that you're safe, you're still okay. uh, things happen to many of us, right? And it doesn't make sense until years later when we go back and then we revisit, whether it's through coaching, through therapy. Most of the time it is when we hit a wall or when we are feeling quote unquote stuck, right? When we feel like what is going on, like I can move forward, I can have what I want. So when we, and as many coaches will say, a lot of the times we find the answers when we go to the past, right? And kind of like dig in a little bit. So for me, it wasn't different. It was exactly like that. And my the point in which I realized that fears can be actually helpful, and it's okay to be friends with the fears. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to allow ourselves to feel uncomfortable is when I had my wake up call about almost 9 years ago, when I was, and as I was diagnosed with cancer. And as with anyone who is touched by that, is a very life-changing moment, right? And so what I will say is it could be anything. It could be health related, it could be in relationships, it could be with, especially after last year 2020, it could be with losing our jobs, losing anything. It's at any point in which things change for us, like physically and also mentally and emotionally. So allowing ourselves to go through that process of grieving, like what is going on in my life, okay, this is happening, okay, what is the feeling that is coming through, to really allow yourself and not avoid it, because a lot of people automatically think, oh my gosh, this is so painful, uncomfortable. I'm just going to put it on the back of my mind and not think about it, because maybe that will make it disappear. And so really it is, being okay with what is happening, and grieve and take your time to go through it, and asking questions. And I know it might sound kind of, like odd, because people are not used to it, but what else can you do at the same time? You cannot be in that pit hole, like suffering, for so long.
Yeah, yeah. I heard something really powerful last night. It's like your greatest denial of something, an emotion like fear or whatever situation you haven't been wanting to face, it is exactly what it is that's keeping it there. So by welcoming the fears, by getting intimate, getting close to it, getting curious, asking questions,
Mhm.
that's actually what creates a space for that fear to dissipate. And for me, what I've came to also realize in my journey and the women that I work with, it's like these fears usually it's a signal for something underneath of that. It's like the parts of ourselves that have been rejected or repressed or disconnected or pushed away for so long, and that part of us could be something as beautiful as like our innocence, our joy, our desire to be bigger than life, or a desire to love. Like underneath of all of those layers of fear, it's usually something very powerful and beautiful and sacred that we get to reclaim, so that we can really come from a place of wholeness right here and right now, versus like needing the success, needing the relationship to feel that we are complete and whole.
Yeah, and you said it perfectly, because a lot of people, like it's easy sometimes because we're busy, it's easy to not think about it and think on the next thing, or for people who are into development, for people who are committed into doing better, being better, doing more, we in our minds create this idea of always doing, chasing something. And if something will hit us, we either try to avoid it, that it will cause some sort of effect in our lives, because we think that the more busy we are not thinking about it, right, of the thing that is hitting us. And also we think that the whole thing about empowerment, right, we can find empowerment in so many different things. It's not just working so hard, like pretty much sacrificing yourself and your time, right? You can also find your power, take your power back from being in that place of being vulnerable, being in that place where it causes you to be a little freaked out, and have the fear and ask questions. Because the thing is, when we avoid it, we're actually giving our power away to that episode, that fear, that situation. But when we allow to stay there for a little bit, that's the key, not to stay there for too long, and just ask the right questions, be curious about it at the same time. I also acknowledge that for people it could be so many things, because I know when it's health related, to some people it's a little, a little more scary, because it's not just their own health, but it's also their family, like feeling, oh, I'm not safe, I'm not well, what's going to happen to my family if I'm not here, right? But again, it's taking the opportunity of asking the questions: what is going on in my life right now? What is creating this situation, and how can I change it? And not putting that pressure on ourselves of, I must do this, I have to get out of this place. And because I think, like, in that empowering place where a lot of us are now, because there's more people waking up and wanting to do something for them, there's this also desire to be better, do more, and have, everything we want, but also a little, controlling in a sense. And if things don't go our way, then we're like, what is going on? We keep hitting the same wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hmm.
love what you said about like the moment when we try to avoid something, or that's actually us giving our power away, because we're essentially saying that this thing, it could be an illusion of a massive monster that we're so fearful of. But when we avoid it, then we're saying that this exists, like that this is real, that I'm trying to not deal with it. And it's like going back to what I said earlier, like when we deny something, that's what's keeping it lodged in our body and in our nervous system, and it doesn't create room for it to dissipate. And there's another thing, Wendy, that you mentioned. It's so powerful, and I listened to this from Abraham Hicks, I think, like 2 days ago, and they talked about how the greatest like false premise that humanity has really built upon is that the more we do, the more valuable we are. And that's ingrained in so many of us, including myself, right? And that's why I tend to have this like automatic behavior of like keeping myself so busy in the doing and doing and doing. And it's because we are running from this fear of the moment we stop doing so much, then that's going to mean we're not worthy, that we're not valuable, that we're not good enough, because our worthiness and our value has been so conditioned to be dependent on the grades that we get in school, the diplomas that we get, the promotion that we get, how good of a job that we get. So it's just like, it's a deeply ingrained conditioning that we really get to be conscious of, and to unwind, to really unwind, finding a deeper place of really feeling our worthiness and our value. Do you experience that yourself, Wendy, on your journey?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because if while I was going through my journey, right, and not knowing what was going on, like I didn't know much about personal development, or how to heal ourselves, or in my case, my body, how to heal from a disease. And I started looking, researching, learning, and then all of that was new, all of that was very interesting and promising at the same time, because in my mind that's when I started thinking and believing, oh wow, like I can do something about it. I don't know what it's like, but I can start, and because it's new, I was like, okay, I'll try that. And so, but then at the same time, I was realizing that the more I was getting into the work, the inner work, the deep, deep work, it kept opening up more, right? It kept opening up to more discoveries, more new things for me to learn, but also more fears, right? Like it's like all the layers. You peel, you're at the very top, you peel one layer, and then you are, yeah, everything is great, everything is happy. And then you keep on going down, and then there's another layer, and they're like, wait a minute, what is this? Because the better we become, the more we're curious, the more we're learning, we have a much better understanding of what is happening. And then something will come up, and that, to me, that really means that we are in a much better place to deal with things that were always there, but it's
Mhm.
just that we were not aware of that.
Yeah.
And so we are in a much better place to, because we are ready in a sense, right? Like our soul is ready, saying, okay, now you can deal with this because you have the tools. And not a lot of people, and even me, like sometimes I'm like, oh my god, why again, right? And
Mhm.
not a lot of people will realize that it's part of the process, and we do have the potential, we do have the tools to go through that one more time. Because for some
Mhm.
people it's like, I thought, and I even said it, oh my gosh, I thought I already healed this, I thought I already went through this, why am I doing this again? But at the same time, people call it is a test of the universe, it's a test of, like something that says, well, like go through it again and again. But I don't want to call it more of a test, but I feel like it's a way for us, or for our soul, to say, you know what, you've gone through it, but you will go through this again. It's a way of, for us, to reinforcing our knowledge, our potential. And I know that sometimes for people it's like, oh, like, how do I get through this again? It feels like we get to spend some time with, and be curious with that, what is going on, in accepting, because the more we avoid it, the more it's going to come back again and again. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's deep work, but then at the same time, it's you can always approach it with curiosity. And then I see that rainbow is coming back up again. Little sun keeps moving around.
It's beautiful. It's an angelic presence.
My guys are telling me, yeah, to share this.
Yeah. So I love what you said about like approaching it with curiosity, and that's why like the work that I do with others is, for me it's about it's a constant, like you said, it's a process. There's always going to be new challenges and new experiences that really put us into leaning into the fears and feeling through some of our deepest, darkest pain. But when we cultivate this safety, this goodness, this pleasure, like within ourselves, it's almost like we have a safety blanket. It's like we have a buffer room, so that when we experience these difficult times in our life, like we have something to meet it with love, with pleasure, with goodness, and this like powerful space that can really be bigger than everything, bigger than the pain, bigger than the most traumatic experiences in the past that's coming back to haunt us in the present. Like we can build up that muscle so that it's so we get to be so much more grounded and centered versus letting all of these experiences to pull us in all different direction in reaction. That's so out of our power. And I was just coaching a couple of people yesterday, and I talked about how what if there's no finish line? Like, what if there is no resolution to any problems that we perceive in life? Because this is humanity. Like, this is humanity. Well, and there's no resolution to humanity. And what if the work that we do in personal development and the healing and the transformation is simply about shifting the context from which we relate to our experiences with, right? Shifting how we relate to problems, relate to challenges, and really becoming more and more fully alive in every moment, experiencing it all, like meeting all of the pain and feeling all of it. And just like how we unlock the doors to more ecstasy and bliss and pleasure and joy, we're also unlocking the doors to more pain and more challenging moments. But that's all part of the human experience, and it's about how you change that relationship. How can you meet it with more fully aliveness and pleasure? And sometimes, yeah, we can find pleasure even in pain. Like that's what I've been coming to realize. And it's so hard to put words to it, but it's powerful. It's a powerful experience that I feel like that's what we are here for as humans. Yeah.
Definitely. And it is so true what you're saying, because many people, and that's almost, going back to why am I going through this again? And I tell people as I coach them as well. Sorry, let me just move around. Pretty soon we're gonna be in my bathroom if I keep moving.
We're okay with that.
And that is, like, and it's never going to end. When it comes to discovering yourself, it will never end, because you're not a finite thing or a person or being, right? There's always something more. Because my hope is that we're always, even if we're not so deep into development, but we are still, evolving. We're still learning and growing and being better. Even if people don't, they're not into reading books, they're not into working with a coach or being curious, there's always life happening outside of us that are including us in all of this that is happening, right? So I feel like whatever we go through is just part of the process, but it's not going to end. And I feel people sometimes they take it as like going through a challenge. It's like, oh my God, like when is this gonna end? When am I finally going to be happy? When can I finally get what I want? And the thing is, really understanding that's, you are already in that place of happiness and having what you want, when you choose to see that, even when you are in the middle of, the struggle, in the middle of the, whatever's going on. And that's one of the things that I talk when it comes to the people, the women that I coach. In some of them is more about finding the silver lining in disguise when it comes to trauma, like whether it is health related or emotional, especially emotional past trauma. And personally, it is okay, still finding happiness, still finding love, still finding myself, and being okay with anything that comes, and attracting what I want, even if there is this, for me, quote unquote, diagnosis, right? Even if there's this challenge that maybe there's no like a 100% solution, maybe it's only 80%, but I can still have anything that I want. I can still be happy, wake up, happy, enjoying the time, enjoying the sun, and having connections with people, and being in a community. And so not obsessing about getting to the like a lot of people say, right? Don't think and obsess about getting to the final point. Really enjoy this journey that you have, and finding those bits of happiness, success, feeling in love, whether it's with somebody or with yourself. Which, and you, I love your word, because it's a lot of it really is getting to know ourselves and love ourselves and find that thing about us that is, it's playful, sensual, and getting a little bit more into that. Because I feel like a lot of people, especially women, were like, oh, I've never done this before. I mean, you can do it behind, closed doors, and
Yes.
and just do it for the fun of it, because it's fun and it's going to inspire you, not only be creative in that area or that space, but also in other places, right? Maybe you'll take on a hobby that you've never done before. That's fun. That can bring you a little bit of happiness in that moment. Maybe get into, like meeting new people. If you are those kind of people like I was, like, oh my gosh, I'm so shy. I cannot, speak in public. And just like doing little things with curiosity, it can really open up so much for you.
Mhm. Yeah, and Wendy, what you said about choosing to feel good, to find evidence of like joy and even well-being despite like your current reality. Let's say like 9 years ago when you had the diagnosis, the power of choice, it's key right there. I think like for a lot of us, I mean, including myself back in my journey at the very beginning, like it almost felt foreign to me. Like, what does it mean to really choose? And I've spoke to a couple of people too. Like, they understood the concept. Like, I get to choose, but then they didn't really understand it in a full body embodied way. Like, what does it feel like to choose to feel good? Like, and that the power comes from really requires us to, like you said, like we talked about, peeling back those layers of fears, of shame, of guilt, because underneath of those layers is the power of choice.
Yeah.
But it's only until we can dissolve some of those layers
Mhm.
that we can really tap into that. And that's why like doing work like what I do with movements and tapping into our body, that's really the core of melting some of those layers, because we can really think our way out of trauma. We cannot think
Yeah.
our way out of like, healing and transformation. A lot of these stuck emotions and the fear and the shame really lives in the body. So if we're not creating space, if we're not moving in a way that let these emotions flow through us, it's a challenge. It could be a challenge. And I mean, it can happen, but it may take a little bit more time if we're just like stuck in up here reading books or listening to podcasts. I mean, those are powerful, but you get to like merge that with like the body and the emotion. Yeah.
Hmm. Definitely. And it's, as far as like choosing, it is, I love that, the power of choosing that really. And I know like some of the people that we follow, we've coached with, like that's a lot of what people say. Like, you, at the end of the day, you do have that choice, but it's not very easy for people sometimes to understand. It's a little complex, really. And even for experts, like, if I consider myself an expert
You
in my own
are.
life, but it's like, oh my god, how can I choose, like, first of all, we didn't like, sometimes we think, I didn't choose to live in this situation, like whether it is losing a job or like of someone in or like health related, right? But I also feel like there's a deeper spiritual or soulful way that our experience was, it was meant to be this way for some reason. For me, it works thinking that way, and I trust that. Even for me, even if I'm still living with that label of having a cancer diagnosis, right? But then also, I feel like that's also an opportunity for me to reassess and think, okay, where have things not been going so well, and how was I playing in that area, which really is, how was I choosing, right? How was I making my decisions based on fear, which probably it was right before, since I was always in fear is or scarcity, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to have this, or things are not available for me, so I must grab it, hold on to it, or then I'll be so stressed out, not trusting people or including myself. There's also not having that belief that we can have it all, but then also choosing life and love at the same time, even if I still have that label, right? Personally, that label of being diagnosed with something, and how can I still have a good time, even with that label that is kind of like behind, like, not that I don't think, which really I don't think about it when I wake up, but I know it's there, right? So I got to be conscious with the things that I drink, that I eat, and how I can take care of myself. And I feel like that was important for me to realize that there is something for me to do, and what can I choose today to make it a better day, even if it doesn't feel so good. And honestly, not every day is great. Like, I go through my ups and downs like a lot of people, but and there's some times in which I kind of really hit like rock bottom, and it almost feels like 9 years ago, and it feels like, oh my god, why is this again, right? And I just go through the little, like, crying, grieving process, and like, Wendy, it's okay, it's this is the process. And I also work, like, I have an astrologist, and I work with her as well. And here's the thing, because learning something new, being curious about something, it takes my mind and away from being the victim, and more about, curious and learning, oh my god, this could be something different that I never knew about myself before. So for me, it was when in the last several months, it's been learning more astrology, learning more about energy, and like, for me, it's not just my physical body or emotional or mental body, but there's something else and bigger than me out there, right? And it could be the same for anyone, whether it's your own beliefs, whether it's religious, whether, and it could be anything, whatever really that holds you and keeps you, connected to yourself. And so, and that's also a good way for us to really know that we do have that power of choice, because we're choosing what is good to us.
Yeah, so Wendy, I just had this powerful visualization as you were explaining all of that. And I know a lot of our audience can relate to this. Is so the power of labels, right? Things like I am diagnosed with cancer, or I am broke, or I am whatever, I'm jobless. Like, we have all of these little labels that we are so attached to and identifying ourselves with. And when you said that the journey that's really supports you, leaning away from focusing on that, it's by curiosity, exploring something bigger than us. It's, I see that ultimately, like, the truth of all of us is we're simply like the space that
Mhm.
holds all of these little identities, like the little labels. And the more we broaden or expand that perspective of really tapping, like going inward and deeper, like finding this sense of ourselves that is bigger than all of it, bigger than all of the labels, that's when we really feel our power, understanding that, hey, the core, the truth of me is I am well-being, I'm wellness itself, I am abundance itself, I am the source, like I am the space, I'm consciousness. And all of these labels can exist within me, but that's not me. It's what I was feeling from you. And that's also same for how my journey has been.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is to, like, I personally don't like labels, like somebody looking at me and say, "Oh, she is this or that, or this happened to her and that." But in reality, I mean, that's how also we, like, my label is like, I'm a daughter, I'm a scientist at the same time, I'm single, or only child. Like, those are labels too. And
Mhm.
really is how sometimes we choose to identify ourselves. So if, again, I think this is important, we can call it anything, but really it's how we choose to identify ourselves, how we choose to live our life based on this experience that is happening, or that it could be a label, right? Like, I
Mhm.
usually, when I talk about my experience, I don't say, I most times I say a cancer diagnosis or something that was told to me, I rarely choose that label that I'm a victim or that I am a cancer survivor, even, or that I'm a cancer patient, right? Like I usually say it's something, because the power of using your voice and language is so powerful. It really, it's a way of attracting or manifesting things. So I usually put it, as another person. Like the cancer is something separate from me. And so any label that people choose to have, especially when it comes to challenges, struggles, things in which it's kind of like, I don't know what to do, like I'm scared. I mean, sometimes we don't say that, but that's our inner thought, right? But it's choosing to say, okay, this is happening, this is not a part of me, but it is something, an experience that I'm going through. Because, and having that inner knowing that on the other side there's a better person of you waiting to meet you. Since you were talking about visualizations, for me that works so great, because for me it's really imagining. And I talk to myself a lot, so there's a lot of inner dialogue, right? Talking to cancer, talking to that scared Wendy, that the little Wendy that was always, like shy and scared. Then also having visualizations of what is waiting for you on the other side, what's on the other side of that fear, of the struggle. It's not always going to be a person who is scared. What if there's that person who is like excited because she knows, which is the better version of you, the future you, right after the storm. There's that person who is excited to, like, waiting for you to let you know, hey, look, you did it, right? Like, you found your way here. Like, I knew you had it, and everything that you did was amazing. Maybe there's that person on the other side waiting for you, saying, look at you, how much you have, expanded and grown and got to know more about yourself and love yourself. I also feel that we should get into that practice of envisioning that person who is playful, who is, just open to trying things. Because I know for women, something that is a little, like challenging in that, oh, like I've never, something that I've never done, like how is it going to be. Just imagine that, imagine the feeling, imagine what it will be like once you are on the other side, after experimenting with yourself, being playful with yourself, getting into new things, adventures and things like that. Because I think it's
Mm.
very powerful to use those tools as well.
Yes, so like if anything, if you want to use labels, you get to choose a label that an identity of the future self, or the already manifested like vision of who you
Mhm.
are deep down, and really dedicating, devoting time and space to build that relationship with that version of you. Like for me, I could embody like the central goddess or whatever that works for you, right? And
Mhm.
I like to dedicate time, like sacred time, and really ritualistic space to connect with her, like to build a relationship with her. How does she move? How does she speak? How does she show up? Like, how does she experience life, and like really bring more of that into the present moment versus dragging the past into this present moment. And one more thing that you said, Wendy, that was so powerful to know for our audience is like, instead of identifying, like using the two words, I am a cancer patient or whatever, that powerful I am word, you see it as a separate thing, and emphasizing that this is just an experience. It's an
Mhm.
experience that's transient. It's not permanent. It's every moment is transient. And
Mhm.
when you say that this is just an experience of having cancer, but that's not who I am, like I
Exactly.
am well-being, it's like that is so critical to everything, not just cancer, not just health conditions.
Mhm.
um so Wendy, we are coming close to the end of the time. I wish we can talk forever because this is so powerful. But is there anything, any last like couple of tidbits that you would like to share with the audience, if they're resonating with all of this?
Yeah, I feel once again, what's coming to mind, really be open to explore and be playful and ask questions when it comes to fear. um and or going through a challenge, like knowing that it's okay to ask questions, because again, when we avoid it, we are probably not going to find the solution. If anything, we're just going to stay there for quite some time, right? And it's not a pretty place to stay if we want to get out of it. And so, and then also getting a little bit more into understanding that understanding is powerful, and really understanding, and asking questions to your mind to really truly, what is that is going on? Am I really, a victim? Am I really someone who is suffering? What else is on the other side? Because sometimes I feel like when I ask questions, that's why I talk to myself a lot, because I like, like asking those questions. And sometimes like things will hit me, whether it is divine guidance or whatever, or my intuition, right? Like, no, like this is something temporary. This is something, or there will be an idea for me to do that will inspire me to get into a new adventure, right? And finding something different about myself.
Mm,
And then, and with that is really knowing that our mind is so powerful, and it does have pretty much the answers, right? It has the answers that we are looking for. We just don't see it easily because we sometimes focus in something that is it's not there, or it's false, which is usually, that fear.
mm,
um that's, you were saying, like it probably is just transient and it's not going to stay there for a long time. So getting curious and being okay with asking questions, and being okay with being in that space for a little while to discover that part of ourselves. And
mm.
then little by little we'll start really feeling that powerful moment to discover who we truly are after the mess, right?
Yeah, so good. And ultimately, like to summarize all of this, like fear is when we leverage the powerful, potent creation energy within our minds to think about the worst case scenario versus we can choose to think about the best case scenario. Again, it's a, every moment, it's a choice that we can make. Am I going to use my powerful mind to think about the worst case scenario, or am I going to envision and imagine or dream about the best case scenario, which it's every moment we can go either way.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I do want to acknowledge all of the audience who are tuning in either right now or listening to the replay at a later time. Thank you for showing up today. Like, thank you for coming on here, dedicating these past 30 minutes to for you. Like this is something that probably gave you life, that resonated with a deeper part of you. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. And if you would like to join me on a fun and exciting conversation like we just had, would love to have you as a guest. And just find the link somewhere in the email or on the post, and you can sign up. And I would love to see you soon. Until next time, I'll see you on episode 24. Sending so much love your way. Bye.